Hi guys, and thanks for tuning in today, and thanks again for your views, your subscriptions and the comments that are coming through. It's greatly appreciated. Today I'm going to be going over subtractions. I did go over some subtractions yesterday with my little girl Logan. She's not with me today, but I just want to recap on some of the long subtractions that we did yesterday, and just to rehash on what we did. So we refer to when we're looking at long subtractions, we use the words borrow and regroup. They're common words that you probably will find when we are exercising these little subtractions. So to begin with, what I've got is I've got two questions here. Actually, I'll just rewrite that so it's a lot neater. So it's borrow. So we call it borrow from our neighbour, which we'll go through and have a look. And I call it regroup. In other words, we're changing the structure of the value, but keeping it the same, but just changing the group of those individual digits. Okay, so what I like to do is, to begin with, I just like to make sure that we consider we separate the ones from the tens, from the hundreds to the thousands, just to make it a little bit clearer. So what I start off with by saying is this: 1 take away 4. Now, 1 take away 4 is actually -3 when we look at when we move on to more detailed mathematics. But for this purpose, we just say 1 take away 4. We can't do it. Can't be done. So we put a cross through that, and that means we actually have to borrow 1 from our neighbour. But the problem we have here is that our neighbour actually has 0. Our other neighbour also has 0. But so we have to ultimately borrow from, I'll just put it in here. So because we've got to borrow 1 to go on to this guy. So we've actually got to borrow from all of that. Again, we want to borrow 1 from our neighbour, but our neighbour has nothing. We then want to borrow from our other neighbour, but our other neighbour also has nothing. So we have to go all the way to our neighbour right over the other side, who happens to have 5. And there's a total of 500 is what I take from there. So if we take 500 and I just want to borrow 1. So in other words, 500 take away 1 is 499. So I want to borrow 1, so I take 1 there. This value now becomes 11. Okay. And if we regroup this, we can now say that this is the equivalent of saying 499. Then we've got this 1, which I've just put a cross through it, but we borrowed 1, so we actually have 10 in there. So I've just regrouped it. Take away the 324. Actually, you know what I'll do? I'll just remove all of that just to make it a bit simpler. So just put the takeaway sign. Just pop the takeaway sign in there. So in other words, I've regrouped all of that to resemble that. So now what we actually have is, I'll just put these columns through there again, just to make it a little bit more easier to understand. So what we now have is now we've got, sorry, that should be 11. Sorry about that. It should be an 11. 1, 1, 1, 1. We now have 11 take away 4. 11 take away 4 is 7. We now have 9 take away 2. 9 take away 2 is 7. 9 take away 3 is 6. And 4 take away nothing is simply 4. Okay, so that's our answer. Our answer is 4, 6, 7, 7. Okay, this is just what we call borrow and regroup. And now we can do questions like this, long numbers, using the same principle. All right, let's have a look at another example. Now what I'll do, I'll just take all of that off just to make it a bit simpler for us. Okay, take it off. So have a look at this example here. Again, let's place our vertical columns so that we don't get confused, because students tend to get confused with this part of it. Okay. Again, if we think about the borrow and regrouping process, okay, all the way through. So now have a look at this one. 3 take away 6 we can't do. So I'm going to cross the 3 and I'm going to borrow 1 from our neighbour. Now we can borrow from our neighbour because he has a total of 9. So if I cross him out, I take 1 from him, that makes it an 8. Okay, that's now an 8. And we bring the 1 to here, this becomes a 13. Okay, it's a 13. Just make that a bit clearer. That's now 13. Okay, 13 take away 6 is 7. 8 take away 2 is 6. Now let's have a look at what's happening in the next column. We have 0. Well, 0 take away 3 we can't do, so I'm going to put a cross through that. So we have to borrow from our neighbour, but our neighbour only has, our neighbour has 0. So we can't borrow from someone that has nothing. So we have to actually borrow from this value here. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove that value, and that's actually 30. I'm going to borrow 1 from that neighbour. So in other words, I'm going to take away 1. That's equal to 29. So this value now becomes 29. That becomes 29 now. And remember, we borrowed 1, which goes into this guy, which now becomes a 10. Okay, so now let's have a look at it. 10 take away 3 is 7. 9 take away 4 is 5. And 2 take away 0 or nothing is 2. Okay, that's our answer. 2, 5, 7, 6, 7. Okay guys, so we've borrowed from our neighbour and then we've regrouped the value, which is the same value, we've just simply regrouped it. Okay guys, hope that helps you moving forward further, and look forward to seeing you on the next one. Bye guys.